She stepped onto the aircraft and slid into first class, eyes lowered, moving with quiet precision to avoid the stares. Whispers hardened into open complaints, and then humiliation as flight attendants asked her to leave. Laughter trailed her down the aisle when she adjusted her bag, her jacket lifting just enough. The unmistakable Navy trident, small but absolute, peeked from high on her back. The cabin fell silent. When the pilot emerged and saw it, his face drained of color. He knew exactly who she was. From which city in the world are you watching this today? If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing for more stories that honor those who serve without asking for credit. Ilara Quinn slipped through San Diego International like a shadow, efficient, unnoticed, and entirely herself. 15 years in naval special warfare had trained her to blend into any environment. Today, she wasn't trying to disappear. She wore worn jeans, a scuffed leather jacket, hair pulled into a practical bun, and eyes that scanned without seeming to. The boarding call for Flight 237 to Washington, D.C. echoed. Ilara lifted her weathered duffel, the one that had crossed 4 continents, and joined the line. The businessman ahead of her, immaculate in charcoal, gave a sidelong glance and returned to his call about quarterly projections. She ignored him. The message from her brother burned. Dad's worse. Doctor says days, not weeks. Please hurry. The gate agent glanced at her boarding pass and waved her through. Down the jet bridge she went, every movement economical. As she stepped aboard, the lead flight attendant's smile faltered, just for a breath, then returned to professional neutral. Welcome aboard, she said. First class is to your right. Ilara found 1C and stowed her bag. Around her, practiced entitlement settled into leather seats. Across the aisle, a man in his mid-50s with the air of someone used to getting his way frowned at her arrival. Victor Hale. Excuse me, Ilara said quietly, needing to access her seat. Victor shifted with a sigh and didn't quite stand. I think you might be in the wrong section, he said loud enough for everyone nearby. Ilara showed her pass. 1C. She sat, containment and economy in every motion learned in places where noise got you killed. Her phone vibrated. Another text from Nolan. Where are you? He's asking for you. Then came the announcement. Weather delay, 40 minutes. Maybe longer. Mina Parrish arrived with pre-flight beverages. Just water, Ilara said. Champagne, Victor boomed. Then to the cabin. May as well enjoy the perks we pay for, right? Several chuckles followed. Ilara turned to the window, where storm clouds stacked like distant mountains. She'd flown into worse. Behind her, 2 designer-dressed women performed a conversation designed to be overheard. Standards have really slipped, one said. Remember when people dressed properly for first class? Maybe she won an upgrade, the other replied with a knowing laugh. Ilara didn't react. She had weathered hostage extractions and dry holes gone bad. Airline commentary barely registered as conflict, yet a familiar tension edged up her spine. The old hypervigilance that never quite released its grip. As the delay stretched, first class tightened. Victor became the unofficial spokesman for discontent, his commentary louder, broader, more performative. Damian Cross, 2 rows up, kept turning to chime in. At these prices, we should at least be kept informed, he said, glancing at Ilara as if the decline of standards sat on her shoulders. When Mina returned with the purser, Darlene Kendricks, Ilara sensed trouble before they arrived. Ms. Quinn, Darlene said with professional detachment, I'm afraid there's been a booking error. We need to relocate you to economy. Ilara looked at her boarding pass, then back. This says 1C. Yes, but our manifest shows, Darlene began. Victor cut in, pleased. Some standards still exist. Darlene lowered her voice. I apologize for the inconvenience, but we need this seat for another passenger. We can offer a credit toward a future flight. Ilara noted the satisfied smirks. She'd faced enemy fire with less hostility than this. She had every right to argue. Years of discipline directed her toward the quietest path. Fine, she said, gathering her bag. As she stood, Victor murmured just loud enough, Some people don't belong up here. You can always tell. Damien lifted his phone to take a photo as she passed. Guess they're upgrading anyone these days. The slow walk through the premium cabin felt longer than any exfil. Ilara's face remained a mask, eyes ahead. In economy, Ben Harlow threaded her through crowded rows. "We're full due to weather cancellations," he said, nervous. "We're trying to find you a seat." Ilara stood in the aisle with her duffel while people stared. Humiliation had no chapter in the manual. She shifted the strap. Her jacket rode up a fraction. A young woman noticed something, eyes widening. Then Ilara adjusted, and the moment passed. "I can stand in the back until you find something," Ilara offered. "We need everyone seated for takeoff," Ben said, glancing toward first class. "There's confusion about the booking." Nearby, an older woman huffed. "Must be nice to have them scrambling to make you comfortable." Ilara nodded toward the rear galley. "I'll wait back there. Let me know when you have a seat." Passing down the aisle, she caught the gaze of a small child, watching her with curiosity rather than judgment. "No, honey," the child's mother whispered. "She's not a soldier, just a lady who got downgraded." The irony nearly made Ilara smile. Just a lady who had spent 6 months embedded with a forward team in Helmand. Just a lady who had hauled a teammate 3 clicks under night fire when air support vanished. But that was the job. Do it invisibly, do it silently. At the rear galley, she set the bag down and rolled her neck, a knot of urgency tightening at the thought of her father. If she missed his last days after 15 years of choosing duty over home, what did that make her? The intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Rowan Vantage. Apologies for the continued delay. ATC expects clearance in 15 minutes. Flight attendants, prepare for a pre-departure check." Ilara noticed Ben conferring with a colleague, both glancing her way. The door had been closed some time. Outside, weather worsened. Through the small galley window, ground crews hustled in the wind. Captain Rowan Vantage had flown commercial 15 years after his Navy time. Routine was religion. Pre-flight checks, crew briefings, personal cabin walk. The delay disrupted his schedule, but not his habits. He stepped into first class, acknowledging concerns with practiced calm. He noticed an empty seat, 1C. "Is someone missing?" he asked. "No, Captain," Darlene said, appearing at his side. "There was a booking confusion. We relocated a passenger to economy." "In the middle of a full flight during a weather delay?" he said, frowning. "The passenger was accommodating," Darlene assured. He nodded and continued forward, eyes collecting anomalies the way they had in another life, where a missed detail could kill you. At the class divider, he saw her, standing quietly by the rear galley, duffel at her feet. Something about her posture, back to the wall, eyes tracking movement, feet balanced. As a flight attendant slipped by, her jacket lifted a fraction, an edge of ink at the high back. Vantage froze mid-stride. The trident, subtle, precise, paired with specific marks only a few would recognize. Recognition hit like a chord you feel in your ribs. He knew that face from briefings you never admit you read. He knew what that configuration meant. He approached, voice barely above a whisper, then firm. "Lieutenant Commander Quinn, Silver Star, helm on." She turned, their eyes met, soldier to soldier. For a moment the aircraft's noise fell away, replaced by a recognition that erased the artificial hierarchy of a cabin. Vantage straightened and delivered a crisp salute. "Ma'am," he said clearly, "Fifth Fleet support during Neptune's Spear. Your team's actions saved my brother's unit." The few nearby passengers went still. Veterans among them recognized the posture and the wordless exchange. Ilara gave the smallest nod. Vantage turned to Ben. "Lieutenant Commander Quinn will return to her assigned seat. Immediately." Silence rippled forward, economy into first as people craned to see. "There's been a mistake," Vantage said, "and we'll correct it now." Ben looked from the captain to Ilara, confused. "Sir?" "This passenger is Lieutenant Commander Quinn," Vantage said. "Seat her in 1C. Darlene appeared, composure slipping. "Captain, there's been a booking issue that required—" "There's been a mistake," he said, voice iron flat, "and it reflects poorly on us, and on our respect for those who serve. 1C is hers." Ilara retrieved her duffel, movements quiet, controlled. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The recognition had done what 15 years of decorated service hadn't, made visible what was designed to remain invisible. As they moved forward, passengers watched with new awareness. Whispers traveled like current. SEAL. But she's Neptune's Spear. Silver Star. A young Marine in a faded Corps tee stood as she passed and gave a respectful nod. Vantage escorted Alara personally, half a step behind her right shoulder. Deference rendered public. In first class, Victor Hale shrank into his seat. The smirk was gone, replaced by a man doing instant damage control in his head. Damian Cross held his phone awkwardly, unsure whether to take another photo or hide the evidence. Seat 1C, Vantage said, gesturing. The passenger who was supposed to need it had never appeared. Alara stowed her bag and sat without fanfare. Vantage faced the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to have Lieutenant Commander Quinn aboard. She is one of a very few women to complete special operations selection and serve in Tier 1 units. Many of her missions are classified, but I can tell you, families have their people home because of officers like her. The words settled over the cabin like weight. The quick-to-judge stared with new eyes, some embarrassed and some curious, a few openly admiring. We'll be taking off shortly, he concluded, eyes catching Victor's for a beat. I trust everyone will have a comfortable flight. Back in the cockpit, the cabin changed temperature. Mina approached with a fresh glass of water, hands a little shaky. I'm so sorry, Commander, she said quietly. If I had known, you couldn't have known, Alara replied. That's rather the point. Mina hesitated. My cousin was in Kandahar. He told stories about a woman who extracted a surrounded unit when no one else would fly the run. Was that? Alara nodded, then deflected. I did the job I was trained to do. Across the aisle, Victor cleared his throat. I apologize for my earlier comments. I had no idea. Alara's reply was surgical. You judged what you saw. Most people do. The words hung without accusation or absolution. Just truth. Damien leaned forward. Commander, I deleted the photo. I'm sorry. Too late for that, Alara said softly, nodding toward a woman mid-cabin, thumbs flying. It would spread. It always did. After years of being the ghost a government could deny, she'd be visible for a moment. Maybe that was fitting for her final mission home. In the row beside her, an elderly man in a VA cap caught her eye and offered a quiet nod, one soldier to another. His hands bore the unmistakable scars of up-close war. Korea, he said simply. No other introduction needed. Thank you for your service, she replied, the phrase worn smooth by use, yet sincere. He chuckled. Wasn't always like this. When we came home, nobody wanted to know. Alara nodded. Different wars, different welcomes. Same weight carried. Her phone connected to the aircraft Wi-Fi. A text from Nolan. He keeps saying he's waiting for you. Engines spooled, the jet rolled. For the first time in years, Alara felt the deep fatigue of holding yourself apart. The aircraft surged into gray sky, and she felt a more profound lift. 15 years between worlds ending. Her father had understood the cost because he had paid it across 4 decades. Captain Patrick Quinn had initially discouraged the academy. He'd seen too much, lost too many. But when she persisted with the same iron he'd carried, he became her fiercest advocate. If you're going to serve, he'd said at her commissioning, serve with everything you have. Half measures get people killed. She took the hardest path, and when the door cracked for women to attempt the pipeline, she walked through and kept walking. At Cruz, the earlier hostility had softened into deference and careful curiosity. Darlene arrived, professional again, but honestly moved. Commander, Captain Vantage asked me to convey his personal apologies. The airline will reach out formally. Not necessary, Alara said. Nevertheless, Darlene replied. Is there anything you need? Water and quiet, Alara said. At the divider, the little girl from economy peeked around the curtain and waved. Alara smiled and waved back. The mother hustled her away, mouthing, Thank you. Mina returned with a snack basket. The captain mentioned you were with a Tier 1 unit. My brother's a ranger. He's deployed right now. Rangers are solid, Alara said. Where? He can't say. Somewhere in Africa. Alara nodded. She knew exactly where, and kept the discipline. Tell him Trident sends respect, she said. Mina's eyes lit. I will. Passengers began walking past for the restroom, and some stopped to say thank you or share a connection. Ilara accepted each interaction with quiet dignity, neither inviting nor pushing away. Visibility felt stranger than combat. Victor had gone silent, but she could feel his glances. Mid-flight, he paused by her seat. Commander, I wanted... It's forgotten, she said, ending the ritual apology. He hesitated anyway. My son wanted to enlist after high school. I talked him out of it. Said he was meant for business school. He never found purpose. Not like that look you have, the one that says you know exactly why you're here. Before she could answer, the intercom chimed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Vantage. We've been cleared for an expedited approach into Dulles. The wheels kissed the runway. As they taxied, Vantage's voice returned. On behalf of the crew, our deepest gratitude to those who serve, especially those like Lieutenant Commander Quinn, who ask for no recognition yet deserve our highest respect. It's our honor to bring you home. Commander? Applause broke out, uncoordinated, genuine. When the seatbelt sign went off, something unusual happened. First class stayed seated. They waited. Darlene approached. Commander, whenever you're ready. Ilara understood, an unnecessary gesture of respect, but meaningful. She lifted her duffel and moved toward the exit. Passing through first class, then economy, she found Vantage at the door, standing at attention. Thank you for your service, he said, voice formal but warm. And Godspeed with your father. Ilara nodded, words blocked by the tide, and stepped into the jet bridge, toward the only mission for which all her training had left her unprepared. Goodbye. The Washington hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and fading hope. Ilara moved through it with quiet efficiency, heart pounding with an emotion no school teaches. Outside room 437, Nolan waited, eyes red-rimmed, exhaustion in his shoulders. You made it, he said, and hugged her with the strength of someone holding on to their last line. How is he? For you, Nolan said. I think he's holding for you. Captain Patrick Quinn lay among white sheets that matched his pallor, monitors timing a weakening rhythm. 40 years in the Navy had made him unbendable. Cancer had made him mortal. His eyes opened as Ilara approached. Recognition warmed a gaunt face. My girl, he whispered, always on time when it matters. She took his hand, the same hand that had pinned bars to his collar, that had taught her to read Wind on Water, that had signed her academy recommendation. I'm sorry it took so long, she said. He shook his head faintly. You were where you needed to be. They spoke little. Their family had never needed many words. In the silence lay the only things that mattered. During a lucid moment, he asked, Your team? All good, she said. Rodriguez made Master Chief. Chen got married. You'd have bet against it. Winters finally beat my obstacle course record. A ghost of a smile. Had to happen someday. A nurse entered with evening meds and a tablet. Ms. Quinn, there are people downstairs asking for you. Something about a flight yesterday. On the screen, unsung hero recognized mid-flight. The photo, Captain Vantage saluting Ilara in the aisle. The story had spread. The lobby had filled with uniforms, active and retired. Quiet solidarity assembled on short notice. Patrick's eyes found the image. What's this? Ilara explained the flight in a sentence, downplaying as always. A weak chuckle escaped him. Always carrying the weight without complaint. Her phone buzzed. Vantage. Hope you made it in time. Your father served with distinction. So do you. The CEO would like to speak when appropriate. Patrick squeezed her hand with surprising strength. The best serve quietly, he managed. Sometimes the quiet ones need to be heard. Outside, the corridor had become an impromptu honor guard. When Ilara stepped out for coffee, they stood at attention, offering nods that meant more than speeches. Vantage was among them. We thought you shouldn't be alone, he said simply. Not now. The gesture unsettled a woman who had built a career on anonymity. Bonds formed in service often outrun branches and clearance levels. Thank you, she said, the words too small for the feeling. Back in the room, Patrick's breathing had thinned. It could be hours or days, Nolan said. There's no way to know. Elara took her watch, as she always had. Near dawn, Patrick's eyes opened with surprising clarity. The box, he whispered. In my desk, third drawer. Nolan frowned. Dad, what box? Patrick's eyes stayed on Elara. She understood. There were things soldier to soldier that a brother could not share. I'll find it, she said. He nodded. Proud, he managed, the word carrying a lifetime. So proud. Before sunrise, Captain Patrick Quinn took his final breath with his daughter's hand in his. Light edged the Washington Monument in the distance, a pillar keeping quiet watch. The days blurred, arrangements, notifications, the steady current of condolence. News of Patrick's passing traveled quickly through military circles. Honors he never sought but richly deserved lined up at last. Elara handled the details with precision, letting structure keep her together when grief threatened to split the seams. In his study, she found the box, plain wood with a Navy emblem carved into the lid. Inside lay citations, letters, photos of long-ago deployments, and an envelope with her name, sealed a decade earlier. She opened it carefully. My dearest Elara, if you're reading this, I've made my final deployment. Don't grieve too long, sailors don't. I followed your career from afar, learning what little the clearance gods allowed. What I know makes me prouder than I can express. What I don't know, I can imagine. The path you chose is harder than most will ever understand. The weight you carry, unseen, was mine once. Never as far, never as alone as you have borne it. When you were born, I prayed you would find gentler waters. When you chose to follow my wake, I feared for you. When you surpassed me, I stood in awe. Remember, our greatest service isn't measured in medals or missions, but in the moments we choose duty over comfort, others over self. By that measure, you are the finest officer I have known. The world may never know your full story. I do. That is legacy enough for me. To know my daughter stands the wall, while others sleep in peace. Until we meet in calmer waters. Dad. The letter blurred. Elara folded it, returned it to the box among the relics of a life well served. The funeral at Arlington drew hundreds. Elara stood straight in dress uniform, medals she rarely wore catching afternoon light. Nolan stood beside her, representing the civilian half. The life that kept happening while father and daughter were away. As the honor guard folded the flag with reverent precision, Elara scanned the crowd, faces from Patrick's career and strangers connected by invisible thread. Near the back stood Captain Vantage in his airline uniform, posture exact. With him, to her surprise, were familiar faces from Flight 237, Victor among them, small in his suit. The folded flag was presented with solemn words. On behalf of the President and a grateful nation, Elara received it with steady hands. Afterward, the stream of mourners flowed, stories, handshakes, the language of grief spoken fluently by those who wear a uniform. An admiral approached. Commander Quinn, he said formally, your father was among the finest I served with. The Navy lost a legend. Thank you, Admiral, Elara replied. He lowered his voice. When you're ready to return, there's a place for you at Naval Special Warfare Command. Your experience is vital to the new training programs. Elara nodded non-committally. She hadn't thought beyond today, beyond the last duty owed to the man who made her. Captain Vantage approached next. Commander, he said, offering his hand. I hope I'm not intruding. You're not, she said. Thank you for coming. Your father's name carried weight, Vantage said, across branches. He hesitated. Someone would like to speak with you, if you're willing. He gestured to Victor, who stood back, chastened. Elara considered, then nodded. Victor approached like a man who had reconsidered many things in a short time. Commander Quinn, he said, voice stripped of bluster, my condolences. And I'm sorry for my behavior on the flight. As I said then, it's forgotten, Elara replied. Maybe it shouldn't be, Victor said quietly. Maybe it's something I needed to remember. My son enlisted yesterday. Army. After I told him what happened on our flight, he said he wanted to be part of something that matters, something bigger than stock options. Elara studied him for a beat and gave a small, honest nod. A young Navy cadet hovered at a respectful distance, then stepped forward when Elara acknowledged her. Commander Quinn, I'm Cadet Ember Calloway, she said, coming to attention. I just wanted to say, what's declassified of your record? It's been an inspiration. Ilara saw it, the spark she recognized in the mirror years ago. At ease, Cadet. What's your track? Bud S. Prep, Ember replied, standing even straighter. They told me women can't make it. That's why I applied. Something shifted in Ilara's expression, steel tempered by warmth. Remember this, Calloway. The uniform, the medals, the recognition, none of that makes you who you are. Who you are gives meaning to everything else. Yes, ma'am, Ember said, eyes bright. Dad would have liked her, Nolan said, stepping beside Ilara as the cadet moved away. He'd have pushed her twice as hard as any male cadet, Ilara said, a small smile cracking the armor. Like he did with me. Rows of white markers stretched into disciplined distance. He had understood what it costs and what it's worth. In the days after, Ilara stayed in Washington, settling her father's effects and confronting a new thing, time. Leave she'd never used stretched ahead, an unfamiliar freedom. One morning, her phone rang with an unknown number. Commander Quinn, a clear voice said, Grace Holloway, CEO of Atlantic Airways. I wanted to personally apologize for your experience on board. That's not necessary, Ilara began. I disagree, Holloway said gently. What happened reflects poorly on us, and on how we show appreciation to those who serve. Captain Vantage reported the incident. We're implementing new training because of it. After the call, Ilara sat in Patrick's study. On the desk, a photo of her commissioning, father and daughter in dress blues, pride visible even in the tiny pixels. A text from Nolan blinked. Lunch? Mom's in town and asking about you. Elizabeth Quinn had divorced Patrick when the kids were teenagers, unable to endure the deployments and the distance that came home with him. She'd built a new life far from bases and briefings. Ilara typed, I'll be there. As she stood to leave, her gaze fell on Patrick's letter again. The world may never know your full story. I do. Once that had been enough. Maybe it still was. But something had shifted on Flight 237 when a pilot had recognized not just her service, but her humanity. The invisible weight she had carried for years hadn't lifted exactly, but it had been acknowledged. In that acknowledgement, a kind of freedom. Outside, spring light softened D.C. streets. Cherry blossoms drifted on a breeze that smelled like new chances. Ilara walked with the same purposeful stride, yet allowed herself to notice what she'd trained to ignore. At the restaurant, she saw her mother and brother waiting, Elizabeth's face open and unsure after too long. Ilara straightened her shoulders and moved forward, toward a different kind of courage than any she'd needed on the battlefield. Have you ever known someone who never asked for recognition but deserved more than anyone else? Ilara Quinn never sought it, but honoring her might teach us to look past appearances, to recognize that valor wears many faces and heroes rarely announce themselves. Some battles are fought in far countries. Others are fought on commercial flights and in hospital rooms. All require courage. If this story moved you, even a little, please subscribe, share it, and leave a comment for every quiet professional who serves without applause. Your support helps keep these stories alive and reminds the quiet ones they're seen.